Excellent. You guys have the drum. Excellent.
All right, guys. I'm Billy. I'm sure you want Billy. So I did my project on. I learned the harmonica a little bit and learned all about it and like the culture it's kind of built in the United States and the world. And my inspiration for this was when I was thinking about doing the project, I didn't really want to do something kind of new, and I've always been interested in like the harmonica and like its music that it's been surrounded in. And I wanted to do something new, like I said. So I'm like, so why not? And yeah. So I'll start out with the origins of it. So the first prototype of the harmonica was back in 3000 BC. It was made by the Chinese. It was called the Shang, under Empress Niu Kwa, and it had a 16 reed holes that you could only blow through instead of not drawing air as well. And then that was like the only one seen. We didn't know about that until later times, like that China had a harmonica at all. So and then in 1821, Christian Buschmann, a German, made the patent for the mandolin, which was the first ever European harmonica seen, and that had dual action reeds, so you could both draw the air and blow the air through the holes. And but he didn't really mass produce it or anything. And the first guy who started really producing it widely was Matthias Hohner, who perfected the dual action reeds, and that was in 1857. And it was originally called the mouth organ. And he had cousins in America, so he sent some copies over, like some individual replicas of his harmonica, and then they started selling it in the United States, and that's how it kind of started spreading. And that was like right at the beginning of the Civil War, around 1860. So that's how it kind of sprouted in the United States. And then to move on, like from there, in the Civil War in America, you could see soldiers from both sides, from the Union and the Confederacy. Really, they all, like their armies distributed them amongst the soldiers for morale and purposes like that, to keep up the spirits of the soldiers. So that's when the whole American folk music with the harmonica really started in the Civil War. And then it continued like that all the way, and then all the way up until World War I, where it still was distributed sold by the governments on both sides. So Germans had them, and the British and the Americans in the war. And it was for both morale again and just keeping up the spirits. And here's a harmonica from the Civil War. It's old and rusty, you can see. And this is also Matthias Hohner, the guy who is the original guy who made all these harmonicas. So then, in the 1920s, up until the 1920s, the harmonica in the United States was really only seen in the South as for both like poor black audiences, and they were called race records, like the songs played by the black artists who used the harmonica, and then also by hillbilly whites audiences, and they were in the jug bands that you can see like with the moonshine and all that, if you know what I'm talking about. And but it was still considered a poor man's instrument and a toy, basically, by all the rest of society. It didn't have any respect yet. And then it continued like that until World War II. But the problem was Hohner, who was a German himself, hadn't diversified or like expanded his business of making harmonicas. So at World War II, with I'm sure we all know like the embargo with Germany and Nazi Germany between the rest of the world, like all the allies. So no harmonicas were being exported out or imported into the United States. So there was no new harmonicas coming out, and it kind of killed the popularity and the movement. And with that, the United States couldn't waste any like wood or metal for harmonicas, so because they were using it for war purposes. And but with that, this guy named Finn Magnus. He was a Dutch American immigrant. He perfected the plastic mold harmonica. So instead of wood and metal, it was plastic molded, and he began mass producing that, and it was common in children and households during the war and all that, but it still was viewed as having an inferior sound. But then after World War II, popularity regained with trade again between Germany and all the harmonicas being exported. And this is really when the whole the bluesy strike came around, with African Americans moving to the north after the Civil War and during the World War II, sorry. After World War II and during World War II for work and all that. So it was the first time like whites in the north were really seeing these African Americans and their cultural music and all that. So it was big in cities like Detroit, St. Louis, New York, Chicago especially. And you could really see the blues cultural movement there. And some famous guys that were known for their harmonica and the blues thing was Sonny Boy Williamson II. And he perfected, he popularized the cross harp technique, which is a way of playing the harmonica to sort of manipulate the sounds that you hear. And then another guy, Marion Walter Jacobs, who's known as Little Walter, and he brought the first, he really started, he perfected like playing harmonica with a microphone to make it sound good. And after that, when the 1960s and 70s came around, the harmonica became a little less prominent due to like rock and roll and the electric guitar and solos with that. But it was still featured in the bluesy rock bands and artists like Bob Dylan, the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Billy Joel, and Bruce Springsteen a little later. And I like all those artists too. It's kind of just part of my inspiration for this. And so yeah, these are all these guys here. And after that, up until contemporary time, it kind of stagnated and didn't really go up at all, like the whole harmonica cultural thing. So right now, you don't hear much of famous harmonicists or anything like that. It's all kind of underground. And it's still mainly in bluesy, like rock or folk music. And some famous guys, I don't know if you know them, just Howard Levy and Jason Ritchie. They're like, if you follow harmonica players these days, those are two big names you hear. So yeah, that's kind of its whole journey throughout history. And now I'll tell you a little bit how the actual harmonica works. So here, there's a marine band harmonica made by Hohner, the same company who started it. And so this is a diatonic harmonica. It has 10 holes, and it goes, it's like numbered 1 through 10. And the lower the number, like the deeper the sound, and the higher the number, the higher the sound. And there's 2 reeds per hole, which you can either draw the air or blow the air, and it creates 2 different sounds. And the pitch and the scale of the sound is depends on the material of the reed, which is usually a common metal, and then the length of the reed. So the longer it is, the deeper the sound will be. The shorter it is, the higher the sound will be. And then with that, like, you can manipulate the sound by like bending notes or your hand positioning and all that. And it can get really funky if you've ever seen it, but it's really cool actually. And yeah, so here, I'll just show you how it would sound if I draw the air through the 5-hole. So, and that's drawing the air, and then blowing the air is, so you can kind of tell the difference. And the cool thing about the harmonica too is that you don't really need to learn how to read music or anything, because you just know the numbered holes and you just play it off that. So that's why I thought it was cool too, because like each drawing the air and blowing the air have different like notes, like a C or a D, but all I had to know was like either draw the air or blow the air, and that was easy. So a couple things, like to learn it, like to learn the sound, how I kind of started learning it. what like an easy technique to do, just to be like to go from 1 to 10, just blowing in each hole to like recognize the sound and get familiar with it. So it would just be like. And it just goes all the way up. That's how you get kind of familiar with the sound. Sorry, I'm not asking you to do that. So yeah. So now I'll play. I learned 3 different pieces of 3 different songs, and they're kind of older songs. And one of the songs actually is a harmonica in the song, but the other 2 are just the tunes of the song, but played with the harmonica. So I guess I'll just do that now. And then try and see if you can guess it after, if you want. So here's the first one. It's an older song. It's you guys ever heard of CCR, Creedence Clearwater?
Yeah.
Bad Wind Rising?
Oh,
wow. So,
yeah, sorry, do you mind doing that again?
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And then I learned this other one. It might be a little more easily recognized for like the younger generation because it's in some movies and stuff like that. So I'll do that. Sorry, I kind of messed up at the end there, but you guys ever like the Lions?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, sorry. The end's kind of hard, but yeah. So that's that. And then I'm not sure who that's by, but I'm pretty sure it's called The Lion Sleeps Tonight or In the Jungle. Or something. Yeah. And then this last song is actually harmonica, and it's probably the hardest one. So just see if you can recognize this too. So you guys know the Beatles?
Yeah.
It's have you heard the song "Love Me Do"?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that.
Play it again, please.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what, I kind of self-taught myself this through like videos and harmonica tabs, which are just like what I said, instead of like having to read the music, you just know the holes to draw the air or blow the air. So it's like it numbers off, like you play 3-hole, 4-hole, 5-hole, whatever, and then if there's a negative sign in it or a minus sign, that means you draw the air, and if it's just regular, you just blow the air. And yeah, so I have a harmonica here if any of you guys want to, it's clean, don't worry. I wiped it down, and it's like, just play around with it or anything. Like, this one's one of the ones that are plastic molded, so it's not going to sound as strong as this. But, yeah, everyone give it a try. Just test that. That's all right. Yeah. Yeah, just pass it around. And then, yeah, so this harmonica is it's a marine band, which means like, it's kind of like the generic one you get if you're just learning. So it's like, it's a diatonic, like I said, rather than a chromatic harmonica, which has 12 holes, and it's way harder to kind of pick up because the sound is way easier to manipulate, like with bending notes and all that. Like with this, there's only 10 holes, and drawing the air and blowing the air, there's only 2 kind of sounds that it can make, rather than like this 12-one chromatic is a lot harder to pick up. So this is why I went to the Guitar Center, and then they told me to get this if I'm like trying to get it. So yeah, thanks.
Got the guy's hand.
What's up?
Anyone else want to try this out before we